Hey guys, Chad Hoover, Kayak, Bass, and TV, and I want to talk to you today about the best way to catch bass in the spring. So listen, I make a lot of parallels in my fishing to hunting, right? And I think probably more so than any other time of the year, in late winter into spring, you're hunting for the bass. You're out hunting as much as you're fishing. And so one of the things that I really like to tell people who are just getting started fishing, that spring is that best time to be on the water. And it's because it's obviously one of the times of the year that you have your best chance at catching a monster bass. So aside from bed fishing, it's also a great time for you to learn what's happening through leading up to the spawn, in the pre-spawn, into the spawn, and then coming out of the spawn. So it really helps you get a better understanding overall of what the fish are doing if you can find them and if you can stay with them. So one thing that I tell every angler that I'm advising on how to catch more fish in the spring is to learn the water or the body of water you're fishing. Use fishing reports, do internet searches, look for past articles so that you can figure out where the fish are at any given time. I like to use the upper third, middle third, and lower third of the lake, or what they refer to as upper lake, mid lake, and lower lake. By and large, the northwest corner of any bass lake is going to warm up first. But a lot of big reservoirs and lakes can't be thought of as one big lake. Sometimes a creek arm acts as though it's its own lake and acts as though it's its own ecosystem. So you may find that the bass are going to spawn in the northwest corner of that creek arm or of that section of the lake, not necessarily the entire northwest corner of the entire body of water, especially when you're talking about man-made reservoirs where the upper end is a dam and a lot of time cold water is coming in. And so I've had situations in the past where anglers reach out to me and said, man, so I was fishing this lake and I went to the northwest corner, like you said, and for one, it was hard to maintain position in all that current by the dam, and the water temperature was 20 degrees colder than it was anywhere else. So obviously you have to take some of this stuff and apply it to the fishery. But for the most part, if you've got a shallow estuary, if you've got a shallow lake on one end, and that end happens to be the northwest corner, that's the spot that's going to warm up first. So you have to take some of this information and figure out parts of it on your own. But I like to divide the lake into upper lake, mid lake, and lower lake. And for the most part, early on, I'm going to find them in the upper lake. As we transition to the spawn, they're going to move mid-lake, and they're probably going to hang there until the summer patterns force them to go further down the lake. Now, again, inflows from cold water creeks, dams pushing cold water in, and things along those lines are really going to change the dynamic. One thing that I can tell you, if you have a big reservoir that has a dam that is bringing in cold water from up north every time it releases, one thing that it does is it creates pressure to push the warm water back into the coves, because cold water is colder and denser, so it's going to run underneath the warm water, and a lot of times, like I said, it pushes that warmer water back into the coves, or at least holds it there, and those current lines set up to create little pockets. So in many cases, you have to think of each of those big major creek arms on lakes like Kentucky Lake, Toledo Bend, Gunnersville, and Chickamauga. So when you do that and you find these spawning flats, what I like to do is start just outside the spawning flats, find my first drop off, find my first hump, find my first creek channel with a bend in it, and that is where those females are going to stage, right? And in that stage area, they're going to have quick access to shallow water, or they're going to be able to sit on bait balls that are coming through, moving up into the creek arms, and just gorge themselves on it. So you're going to have to adjust your techniques. Brush piles. If you can find brush piles that either bass fishermen or crappie fishermen have put out there, a lot of times that brush pile is that spot on the spot, and they'll stage on those brush piles before moving shallow. But let's talk about from the time they move shallow and they start to make that progression, the true spring patterns, on until post-spawn when that spring pattern starts to drop off. The key to success during that time, and these are the 3 keys that I'm going to give you, is top, middle, bottom. And that is to have a top water presentation, a mid water column presentation, and something that you can throw on the bottom. And for the most part, I break it down really simple. I use the top water early and late, And then I use the top water anytime I'm in the peak feeding time based on the Solunar charts. I like to use, several different versions, the ones from Fisherman, the ones from Scout Look, Bass Buddy, and some other websites like that. All have great resources, but find one that you like and stick with it, or compare multiple sources to get the best information. So when I see wading birds active, when I see bait fish activity or a blow-ups, then I'm going to go to a power fishing presentation, and a lot of times I'm going to go to a top water. Even in the middle of the day when the sun's shining, sometimes what it does is it warms up that upper part of the water column. Those bait fish move up there, and those fish move up to feed. Then I'm going to slow it down, and I'm going to fish the bottom in my off-peak periods. And then somewhere in the middle, I'm going to fish that middle water column. Whether those bass are hanging back behind a bait ball, and you see the streaks on your graph where they're shooting through it, or they're just hanging back, and you got to throw down into that bait ball and activate them to get them to bite. That's when you're going to want to use that middle water column type presentation. But the one thing that I'm going to tell you, back to my parallel about hunting, is really good deer hunters during the rut, the time that you've got the best chance to kill a big buck, they get in the deer stand before daylight, and they stay in the stand until after dark, because it puts them in the position to where they've got the best possible opportunity to catch that big buck. So employ that exact same mindset and that exact same technique in the spring if you really want to put yourself in a position to catch big fish and catch them consistently. I've talked about it a number of times in the past, but the tow factor, and I'll link up in the description box my video talking about the tow factor, and tow stands for time on the water. If there's a time of the year where you're going to take vacation time, where you're going to, cash in your brownie points with your wife or husband or life partner or whatever, to spend as much time on the water as you possibly can, spring is that time. Fall is right there with it, but spring is that time when you should maximize your time on the water. Be there all day, paddle slow, and look for things to happen once you're around the fish, and let them reveal themselves to you. Or get your paddle out and put in some miles covering water to figure out where the fish are if you can't find them. So, top, middle, bottom, learning how to use the upper lake, mid lake, lower lake concept, and spending a lot of time on the water are my three major keys to catching fish in the springtime. And the other one is get or invest in a good electronics. You oftentimes are just completely fishing blind if you can't find those bait balls, if you can't find those suspended fish. And so buy the biggest screen that you can afford at the time, and you're going to find fish that you wouldn't be able to find otherwise. Numbers of times I've watched guys win tournaments that they wouldn't even have caught a fish, especially the fish that they caught if they didn't have a good graph or something to reveal those fish below the surface. So anyway, get some knowledge in your noggin, spend some time reading fishing reports, get out there and spend some time on the water, invest in some quality electronics, and, fish as much as you possibly can during the time that you've got the best chance to catch that big fish. And I think your outlook on fishing and your outcome definitely will improve. So anyway, guys, I'm Chad Hoover with Kayak Bass Fishing. That's my tip on the 3 things that you should be doing to catch more fish in the spring. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel and turn on that notifications button. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up, leave a comment in the comment section below. This content takes a lot of work to produce. It takes a little bit of effort on your part to hit that thumbs up, or to type out a quick comment saying you appreciate it, or to ask a question for one of my future videos. If you're new to kayak fishing, or if you haven't started kayak fishing yet and you're looking to gear up, Fish USA is the best place to do so. It's your one-stop shop for all things fishing and all things kayak fishing. Fish USA, they're America's tackle box, and they got what you need. And we'll see you in the next video.